I want to thank our sponsor, Poseidus Watch Company, who create stunning military aviation timepieces that are all assembled in the USA and are veteran-backed and approved. My personal favourite is the DD45, which is a stunning homage to the original World War II Dirty Dozen watches, but done differently. They have created 3 different dial faces to recreate the stages the original watches would have went through, which are Factory Fresh, which is my personal watch, Tropical and Patina, and you can also get a choice of 4 different straps to create your perfect DD45. The build quality is second to none with a 38mm diameter case, a double domed sapphire crystal, a Swiss-made automatic movement, screw-down crown, 100m water resistance and super luminova hands and indexes. Head over to their website at poseidus.com to check out this amazing watch and their other great military timepieces and get 10% off as a new customer by signing up via their website. Thank you and enjoy. So let's get on to, everyone knows on this channel, one of our favourite subjects is DACT or ACM. You must have some great stories of fighting the Tomcat against, maybe F-16s, F-15s. Can you share a few stories for us, Corky?
Yeah, I can share one of my favorites. And in case I need them, I've made models.
Brilliant.
One of my favorites was the first time you get to fight an F-16. And you'll see on my X feed, I give the F-16 a lot of credit. It's just a horrible jet to fight. It is so good at what it does. The F-16N model, the Navy variant, was stripped down, lightweight, max thrust with GE-110 mode. It was just awful. And so the first time you ever get to see an F-16 is in your RAG training syllabus. That's your first ever DACT hop is going to be with an F-16. And there might have been an A4 in there somewhere, but I think the F-16 was your first 5th gen fighter fight. And so I can't do this without talking with my hands. So in this particular fight, they get you about 3/4 miles of beam like this, and then they check you left or right rather. Then they say start turning. And this is me in the Tomcat behind the F-16, and you close in for a gun solution to about 1,200 feet, and that's where they say fight's on. You're literally about to gun the guy. Your pipper's up, it's on, and they say fight's on. And he disappears over your right shoulder. So, what just happened? I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me. Meanwhile, he's back here pirouetting around, and he's pointing at you already, and he's about to gun you not 30 seconds later. As you're trying to figure out, I need to increase my pull here, where the hell did he go? But just that moment of the first time watching that guy just disappear over your right shoulder, I don't even know if that's possible, but you just saw it happen, and that's one of the crazier flights when you first see that happen. Then, of course, you get to get in a position to know that's possible. But the first time you see it is just incredible. It's just amazing maneuverability. And it's a 9G turn. The guy just disappears, and there's nothing you can do about it.
While you were in Japan, did you ever get to fight against the Japanese F-15s?
We actually had a flight against the Japanese F-15s one time. It was pretty entertaining. We were doing a 4v4, and the Japanese are really good aviators, but they're also very adherent to rules. They will never break a rule. Navy guys are looking for rules to break just for fun. So we had set up a 4v4 with them, and we carry it to a merge, and all 4 jets merge. Several miles apart. And the Japanese F-15s all execute a simultaneously hard left level turn across the horizon, all 4 of them, which is just red meat at that point because they're not out of plane, they're not out of phase, they're just all across the horizon, just coming across. And it became a race from the Black Knights to who gets to shoot one first because we're just going to savage the crap. It's going to, go in the vertical, you're coming down, you're catching up to the guy. And I think I got one of the guys. This one guy got 2, and somebody got the other one. But it was, in rather rapid order because that's not an especially effective fighter move. So yeah, we got to fight those guys once. It was pretty interesting. We said they looked like the Blue Impulse, which is their the Japanese jet team.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So apart from the F-16, what was the most difficult aircraft you went up against?
F-15 is a really good jet. It is really capable, wicked fast, but it is wicked capable at high altitude. So it's optimized for high altitude flight. Its wings will turn at 35,000 feet if you want to. The Tomcat can barely breathe up at 30,000 feet, so we're not turning really hard up there either.
Mm-hmm.
So one time we're at Red Flag, which is an exercise in Nevada. We went twice in 2 years in the early 90s. And our job is red air. We're going to go out there and die like dogs. They give us really limited former Soviet Union missile types and parameters and profiles and things like that. So we're like, okay. So you would have the fights on, you look downrange, and you can see these 8 Eagles are conning, having contrails come off. You're like, oh, here they come. And they all turn 45 degrees direction because they all have missiles in the air. We're like, okay, here we go. Timeout, kill, we're all dead. Got it. So I'm not going to pass up a chance for DACT. So we all wanted in merges anyway. So I have a section that we pull off to the north, and we're trying to drag these guys downhill to come meet us because I'm not going up there. There's no way I can do well up there. So they take the bait, and they come downhill. And I'm about to take a guy left to left is your normal, right? Actually, I can use models here. Left to left is your normal pass, right? That's the standard. If it's going to be different, you say something out loud, right? So what you would normally do in an eagle fight, and him with me, would probably be a 2-circle fight where you turn across each other's tails, right? So you're forming 2 circles in the air. So my thought is, at the time, I can probably match his turn, but I need a little advantage because I can do about 11.3, 11.5 degrees per second down low at my best corner speed. He can probably do a little bit better, but maybe about the same down low like that with his best corner speed. So I need an advantage of some kind to get me a few extra angles. So I decide to, just before we get together, normally you would pass and then turn, right? I wait till we're about here and I do this and throw the whole airplane up in his windscreen. Bunch of rudder, throw it up there so it looks like I'm going to just smack into him, to his perspective. But I hold the turn and then wait and go, right? What that forces him to do is go, holy crap, for about a second and a half to go, damn it. And then by that time, I've already got 22 degrees on him. And then he turns, and now it's too late because he's never going to get the degrees back. So we get back in the debrief, and I show my tape, and he's like, I'd never seen a jet move that big, move that fast. Just like you're coming at me, and all of a sudden, whack! This huge airplane in my face. Oh my god! Scared the piss out of him, and that's how I got the advantage and won that fight. Doesn't mean I didn't lose a lot of other fights to Eagles. I did, but if you can find a way to get a little advantage, you want to try that.
And did you ever go, let's say, work with the British or, have a chance to fight the British aircraft, the RAF aircraft, like the Tornado or Jag or anything like that?
Not British specifically. We did a Qatar det to Qatar. And from what I recall, I think the Brits trained their Alpha Jet drivers. Brits or French. So we're fighting against Alpha Jets, which are little tiny A4 size jets, and they're painted like the desert, and we're fighting over the desert. So that was a tough fight because you had to keep them really close. You couldn't take them 2-circle and get 2 miles away. You'd never see them again. And, he who loses sight loses the fight. So you've got to stay close to them. And they were actually pretty good. I mean, they didn't really have Top Gun level knowledge of their systems and their platform, but they were pretty good. They definitely knew that if they're down low, they're hard to see, and they would always take you low. Interestingly, training rules are such that you should never do ACM below 10,000 feet. But you're over the desert, you have a chance to take the shot, so you take it, But they're a good bunch of guys. I think they're almost all royalty, is how I remember that. But we fought the Alpha Jets over the desert, and that was a tough fight because there'd be 3 of them and 2 of you, and you're like, I got to keep sight of all 3 because it's that one I don't see is going to come up and cornhole me. So I got to make sure that we keep our eyes on all 3 of them. And you're always gracious in the debrief, and you give them a little leg once in a while. Let them, get behind you just for diplomacy's sake. But again, they were still pretty good sticks.
So you probably have many memorable stories here, Corky, but maybe can you share a few that stick out in your mind for the viewers?
One of them would be the time I almost died. One of 3 or 4.
Right, we're starting there, are we?
It happened, whatever, So there's a lot of geometry here. I'll just try to talk you through it. But I was a RAG instructor, and we were doing a 1 versus 2. I was the 1, and it was 2 bogeys to give the backseater a presentation, having 2 bogeys to go after by himself. That's the presentation he's doing. That's his training point. And then his other training point is how do you get into a ACM furball with 2 other airplanes, right? And what is his role? His role really is not to fight the guy in front of me, is to keep an eye on the other guy, to tell him when his nose is coming to bear that I need to pull up this guy on or him. So it's a very set learning points for the RU to get. So we go out in the working areas over water, and we're headed towards the section about 50 miles or so, speed of heat, like 500 knots. And he's got them both on radar, both on track roll scan, left, right. And we are kind of trying to get outside the guy that's on the right. So we want to have the section to the south of us and never go between a section, because that means they got you bracketed and you're done. You want to go outside the section. That's the goal. So we're trying to stay to the north side of this section. They're to the south of us. And I can see plain as day, two tracks. And we take our Phoenix shot, which means you do this and you come off, and at times you come back in. Then you come back in at 15 miles or so for a Sparrow shot, and that's when you have to lock up your guy, right? So I want him to lock up the north guy, not the south guy, because I'm in the north. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. As is sometimes possible, when the OB9 tries to get that radar lock, it track switches and goes to the other guy. All right. So unbeknownst to me, he says, I got a good lock, and I got a diamond. Yeah, it's about where it should be. I can see there's a diamond around a dot out there. That should be him. But my brain tells me that's the guy on the north, not the guy in the south. But I'm looking radar track at the guy's south. So we start coming in, and I'm going to try to get outside of him a little bit, and then start a turn at about 2 miles to try to, get outside that formation and do some good work and at least kill one before we have to run away.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, there's a guy right in front of me, coming right at me, maybe not much difference in altitude. So I start my turn to get the guy that's over here now, the south guy, and I don't see the guy to the north. And this is one of those moments where the brain does a fascinating thing. I can still see it to this day. I start to turn, and there's this thump, a shadow and a thump. It's like, poof, thump. What the hell was that? So I roll out, and you know how, not so much nowadays, but in the older days of computers, a picture would download and kind of buffer.
Yeah.
My brain's doing that, and it's processing this data, and it seems like slow motion. It's literally the belly of a Tomcat right in my face. I can see the rivets and the rivet lines and the tanks. So I had turned in front of this guy's, I just call his fingers. He just goes like this and just jerks back. I never saw him, but thump, it was right there. Shadow, thump, process picture. Okay, I'm going to roll wings level. We're going to slow down. We're going to go home now. I want to go to bed. I want to take it down. So we knock it off, and we get back, and figures like, dude, I mean, it would have been spectacular. We never would have known it, but it would have been spectacular, a collision at 1,000 miles an hour. So yeah, that was one of those moments where you learn that, you just go talk about it, you debrief it, you talk to the student, you go, okay, let's hope that doesn't happen again. And that's kind of what you have to do. You move on. I mean, this is a business where it never happened to me flying, but it happened to USS Abraham Lincoln on my first cruise. We were in the Nimitz, and then Lincoln was coming out to meet us. And they had a ramp strike. Guy named Planet, good student, brand new like me, hits the back of the ship. Tomcat breaks in half, tumbles off the end. He doesn't make it. Well, there's still 14 airplanes airborne. You got to sweep the deck off.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, guys. You come aboard. You got to get this done. You got to refocus, compartmentalize, and get it all done again. You can't let anything bother you. So that's a unique part of the business. Definitely.
Yeah, so let's just go back to your near miss there. Was your heart racing when you were going, RTB? Were you like, oh my God, or did you just like, you were switched off and you can like just finish, whatever you were doing just so you'd landed? And then did that all kick in when you were in the debrief?
You take it, put a little box, compartmentalize it, put it in the back of your head. You think about it later when you get home. There's no reason to ever get mad about it. It's like, hey, shit happens. That's just what happens in this game,
Yeah, of course.
And it's some lessons you learn cheaply. Some are more expensive. Fortunately, I learned a lot of cheap lessons. Another one would be when we were on the Kitty Hawk flying off in the Persian Gulf, and it was a summer day. In fact, I looked it up. I think it was June 4th. I just looked it up yesterday. We're flying our normal. At the time, it was called response option. So we're carrying a Phoenix on a shoulder station, a lantern pod on the shoulder, 2 winders, a 2,000-pound laser guided bombs, and then a Stinger Sparrow in the belly. So you got full combat loadout. That's just for patrolling and potentially dropping a bomb on something that needs to go away. And again, hot day, so hot and heavy is kind of hard to do in a Tomcat. And at the time, we had this new problem with the TF-30s called breather pressure, where if the oil breather pressure exceeded X somethings, the motor would just blow up. Like, oh, look, that sounds like it's pretty bad. Okay, let's make sure you don't do that. So they installed this new gauge, and if you got a breather pressure light, you had to do X procedures. One of them to include shutting the motor off, because you don't want that motor to separate. So we launch off, and we're just right off the cat. We're doing fine, and all of a sudden, breather pressure light comes on. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. Okay, so I'm overhead the ship, start looking at the procedures. We pull it back to idle. It stays on. Okay, got to turn it off. So we're going to shut off the, I think it was the right motor. Yeah, right motor. Turn it off. Now we're max fuel. We're at 18,000 pounds of fuel. We carry 20,000 pounds. We're at 18,000, 17,000 pounds of fuel, bombs, missiles, and everything. And we weren't that far enough into the flight that the drop tanks had emptied yet. So they're full drop tanks and got a ton of fuel. And I can't really dump all the fuel until the tanks have transferred. So we're talking to the ship going, what's the next plan? They're like, well, get your fuel situation settled. So I call them back in 20 minutes. I got the drop tanks are almost empty, so that's close enough for me. I don't really care. We're at about 5,000 feet, wings out, flaps down, speed brakes, gear down, everything. We're going to get this thing to figure out how slow I can get. And I need to be at 15 units. And that's more of a measure of your angle, because you're going to be, hitting the deck at the right angle for the hook to catch, right? So I can't get it much slower than 12 units. And it gets down to 13 units. It just falls off and stalls. I'm like, oh shit, you got to kind of, whoa, like this. And so we do it again, same results. And eventually I call the ship and I go, hey, we're having trouble getting this thing down to a really landing speed. So we're probably going to divert to Kuwait. And meanwhile, the air boss comes up. He's the guy in charge of the flight deck. He's like, negative. We want you to try to take a landing on the ship. And I'm like, I don't think so. We're going to go to Kuwait. And my Reno is kind of a new guy. And I said, go and switch up a Red Crown. That's the cruiser. He goes, what? I said, switch. Get off of Tower Freak. We're not talking to the ship anymore. We're leaving. Really? Yeah, we're leaving. I'm not going to go land aboard the ship. We're leaving. So we get to booming towards Kuwait. It's probably 100 and something miles away. And we talk to the Red Crown, the cruiser. We start talking to Kuwait International. And yeah, they got a runway, yada, yada, yada. interestingly enough, it's at that moment, the engine gauges on an F-14A are tapes. They're like these white tapes that go up and down. So your RPM and things are split tapes like this, So the right one is off and the left one's sitting up there. I look down and the left one just drops. Oh. And it shows that moment to have an indicator failure. Like, no! Oh, okay. We're still flying. Okay, good. So, just to throw some fun in the mix there. So we get to Kuwait and we have to take a short field arrestment, drop the hook, we land, take the wire, and get out. And we're met by a bunch of Air Force dudes because the Air Force had done the expeditionary airport there in 95, I think it was 6. And sure enough, we pop open the engine bays and the right engine is just, oil just comes crashing out. It's like, okay, that's probably a good idea. Okay, so yeah, that was a real one. But the funnier part is this occurs on a Friday, and in the Black Nights, Friday is Black Night, Black Flight Suit Day. So here we are in Kuwait in black flight suits, and you can imagine we're walking around. Everyone's looking at us like, "What? Who the hell are those guys?" Like there's some super secret squirrel nerds or something like that. So we had to spend a day and a night there, and we go get some chow. We're like, God, this food is delicious. It's done by a contractor. It's all wonderful. And then they take us to this tent quarters. Like, tents, this is going to suck. Oh no, it's a beautiful tent, air conditioned, pumping through it like it's 62 degrees in there. And then we go over to the little jet mart to get some geedunk and some snacks and stuff. And there's a pool, and sure enough, there was a bunch of decent looking Air Force girls in bikinis around the pool. I'm like, what is with the Air Force, man? You got bikini chicks and what the hell, man? We're dying out there on the boat, Yeah. And so we asked one of the guys, like, hey, where's the booze locker? It's like, oh, we don't have them. I'm like, oh, come on. No. You got something, don't you? It's like, no, I'm not going to do that here. I'm like, you guys suck. So we had to spend one more night. And the jet sent a C2 with the crew and a new motor, rolled the motor, and then we took the jet back the next day or day after that, I think. But we spent a couple days in Kuwait. Again, just getting the funniest looks in black flight suits, like we're like some super secret pilot or something like that. Like, no, we're just a bunch of knucklehead fighter guys, really. We're nothing special.
That's a brilliant story. But yeah, Corky, how many hours did you get on the Tomcat and how many traps did you get also?
Right around ended up with 2,000 hours total, about 1,900 and something, and then 670 traps, I think 290 at night or something like that. So yeah, quite a bit. Lots of guys have lots more than I ever did. And to be truthful, my flying career was cut short out of Japan, where I was 6 months from departing, and I did my birthday flight physical, and I'd come down with type 1 diabetes, which was quite a blow, as you can imagine. I was flying the night before, and I'd go in to see my doc, and I'd been losing weight like a son of a bitch, and my eyes are blurry, all the classic symptoms. And she goes, I got some bad news. I'm like, what? She goes, you have diabetes. I'm like, oh, I thought it was cancer. Thank God. Okay, good. It's not cancer. Good. My uncle had diabetes too, so I kind of took that in stride. And it was hard at first, but in reality, what I came to realize is that first, you can bitch about having a two pair in your hand and really want a 3 of a kind, but if you don't have a 3 of a kind, all the crime in the world is not going to make it be 3 of a kind. It's still 2 pair, so you can't really complain about fate like that. And the other piece was that I had spent doing for 10 years what people would give $1 million to do for 10 minutes.
Oh, God, yeah.
So it's like, feel blessed for what you got to do, not sad for what you don't get to do later, And that was kind of, I could rapidly kind of come out of that spiral by just telling myself, you did a great thing here. It was awesome. So, just enjoy the memories. And I moved on, and as you saw in my bio, I took over the Oceana Air Show and started, giving back that way, and doing those kind of things. So that was always kind of key. But the worst thing was my last flight in the F-14 was not cool. It was awful. Okay. It was we had just gotten 2 new pilots in. So my job as the night vision goggle training instructor was to take pilots up in the trunk to fly around Tokyo on goggles for the first time. So here I am on a night level boring mission times 2, because I took both of them up flying, 2 pilots. I come back the next day, can't fly again. And I'm like, Doc, can I get like a post low level, maybe an ACM 1v1, something, just one more? She's like, nope. I'm like, oh, son of a gun. Okay, well.
But again, people will pay a fortune just for what you doing then and say it was a boring flight. People would love to do that.
Oh, hell yeah. So, grain of salt. I enjoyed literally every minute of it. Even setting the alert at 4 a.m. in the South China Sea, getting up at 3 to get to your jet and sitting on the alert 5 track and all the Liberty ports and all the hard flying and, some of the poor decisions you make that lead to interesting outcomes that it works out. And I was also pretty good at getting the jet up out of the chocks. The maintenance guys liked me because I could always find a way to get it going. Almost always. If it was something I could affect or go with, I would do it. Not to any great hazard, but if it was a system I thought I could do it, then I'd go. But I was always, pretty good at getting the jet out of the chocks, and never the greatest ball flyer in the world. It was always fairly predictable. The Corky one special is a little high all the way, settle to a deuce across the ramp. Okay, good, perfect. You're here every time.
You're here anyway, so that's good enough, isn't it?
I'm here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I always get from Navy guys as well, they always give a shout out to the maintainers because that aircraft is a complicated beast, isn't it? The Tomcat.
Gosh. You wouldn't believe how hard that is to work on. And I remember Chief Charlie Brown was a wizard as a hydraulics technician. He could hook up the Jenny, which pressurized the hydraulics, and he could hear where the problem was. He would just listen to the jet and go, it's right over here. Number 4 spoiler actuator. He was that guy. And then Popeye Doyle was a seat mechanic, just a wizard with the seats. And he his crushed up face like Popeye. I call him Popeye. And then I remember one time I was in Japan and I'd been there for a bit. I was the maintenance officer. And we had a sailor show up in maintenance control. He had just got there. Now that flight from U.S. to Japan is a long time, 14 hours more. It's a bell ringer. You're spent. That's why when you get there, they don't have you do anything for 2 days. You just need to get your clock back, But we were sitting there talking to the maintenance master chief about this one problem jet with a shoulder station Phoenix station. They couldn't get to prep the Phoenix for some reason. Trying. They couldn't figure anything out. And this kid is at the check-in desk talking to somebody, but he overhears the conversation. And he goes, hey, sir, can I see what you got going on there? I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. And he goes, I think I saw this at Pax River. No, sorry, Point Magoo on a F-14 we had there. The same problem. You mind if I take a look? I'm like, dude, you just got here. Your family's tired. He's like, no, I'll go take a look. I'm like, okay, sure. Sure enough, guys in his street clothes, and they've got the overwing fairing ticking off. He's literally diving into this void on top of the jet into the wings, and his feet are sticking out, and he's reaching a cannon plug no one's ever seen in their life before because the airplane had so many little nooks and crannies of stuff you would never see, And he finds a cannon plug, he finds a broken wire, and he fixes it like that, And I'm like, that's the kind of guys I love working with because those guys, they took it as a personal matter of pride to get those jets up, And I remember a jet broke one time and I got really mad and my skipper pulled us aside and said, look, these kids working on this jet, they take it as a matter of pride. Don't get mad at the jet. They tried their best. And so you talk them up, make them think that don't make them think. You need to care about their efforts because they're the ones doing all the work. They're the one getting all the glory and going on airborne liberty every day, So yeah, it was an endless fascination with the maintainers. And as a maintenance officer, that was my bread and butter because the sailors knew I loved what they did and really supported them. I knew from my dad, he told me a long time ago, he said, you just give a sailor the tools to the job, give them the job, get out of the way, and give them top cover when they need it, So if your chief has to solve a problem in a less than necessarily legal manner, you just say, okay, just make sure that works out, So yeah, just to a man and woman, we got integrated later. I remember one time I walked up to the roof, and it was 154, and the plane captain's waiting there. Hey sir, jet's ready for looking. Okay, he said, is it ready to go? He says, yes sir. And I said, well, let's go. And I just hopped in and didn't do a pre-flight. Now, to be honest, the number of things you find in a pre-flight that are going to kill you is pretty low. Jet seemed pretty decent anyway in the first place, and if it was serious, they'd catch it. So there was not a lot of risk there. But that kid went downstairs and he's telling everybody, the Mo got in the jet, didn't even pre-flight. He said it was awesome, And I talked to the mate's master chief later. Said that kid's going to stay in the Navy forever because you just showed him you trusted him.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
That's really it. That's really all it takes is that back and forth trust, because sailors know if you're faking it, and they will never really follow you. I've had several COs that I would follow into this seventh circle of hell because they asked me to, and I've had COs I wouldn't follow into a bar serving free beer because it's like, no, I don't like the guy, So
yeah,
you try to be that first guy that people will follow, and go the extra mile for you. That's what leadership's all about.
Well, it sounds like you've had a great career on the Tomcat, Corky, but we've got a couple of random questions from viewers and then a couple of personal ones from me to wrap up the interview, if you're happy with that.
Yeah, sure.
So the first one is, I'm not going to say the names of these people, fastest you've been in a Tomcat.
My buddy Snapper and I were going out on a maintenance profile flight for an F-14B. Snapper and I were cruise roommates, drinking buddies, flying mates. We're fast friends. He was actually a former A6BN. That was another value add in the mid 90s when the A6 starts to go away. The Tomcats absorbed a lot of BNs and A6 pilots for that bombing experience. That was valuable. So we're in at Oceana, VF-101, and we get a B. It's a engine change, which is there are three levels of maintenance flights. There's a Pro A where they do something big. You have to check everything. There's a Pro B where it's just the motor change. You just check the motor stuff. And there's a Pro C, which is more flight control related, with a longer, medium, and shorter checklist for ABC. So we got a B, which is 20,000 pounds of jet of gas and a jet with not a lot to do. So we're going to go out over the water and do the checklist and have fun. We decide to see how fast it will really go because we're both A guys, So we get like at, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 feet, and we just light the blowers. And I swear the B, if you're at 250 knots and you light the blowers, you're literally thrown back in your seat like on Battlestar Galactica or something. It's just like amazing. And we're just accelerating. There's 1,000 miles an hour. There's 1,200 miles an hour, 1.9 or something like that. Something crazy. And we're just hauling ass. And it's like, okay, we got to turn around now because we're about to get too far off the coast. So we turn around, start heading back, and we get back and we land. Tell the chief, hey, the jet's up, motors are good. And he goes, hey, sir, how fast were you going? We're like, I don't know, just flying around. It's like, you want to come look at this? I go, what? And we had peeled the paint off the nose. It was just gone because of the heat. And he was like, Mach 1. I was like, well, maybe a little more. That was the fastest me and Snapper had ever been. We're like, yeah, we were hauling ass. It was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool, yeah. So another one here. Did you have a favorite squadron you flew on?
Well, everyone loves their first squadron. VF-24, that's where you cut your teeth. That's where you learn how to be a fighter pilot. That is your most enduring legacy of friendship and things, because you all kind of got through that first thing together. But in reality, the camaraderie in VF-101 as a training squadron and being an instructor was amazing. Worked with some of the best there. And then you went to VF-154 in Japan, and they're just aces. So every pilot loves their first squadron the most. So it's like having, 3 kids. You love them all, but this one, I kind of like it a little more,
Yeah, they all give you something different, I guess.
Yeah, true statement. Yes.
Yeah. So the last one before my personal questions. Do you have a favourite piece of memorabilia you've had from your time flying the Tomcat?
Well, you see behind me, that's actually an F-14 hook over my shoulder. That's a full hook. I was an operations officer at Oceana, and the F-14 was going away. And in order to get rid of them, the Navy contracted with a local metal company that if you cut these birds up, you can have all the titanium inside them. And for those that don't know, the interior that the Tomcat is this thing called the box beam. It's this giant titanium box that they strap the wings onto, right? Grumman actually had to invent the process to weld titanium to make that,
Yeah, they did, yeah.
back in the day. And that's a massively valuable piece of metal. It's just hard to get to. It's got a bunch of F-14 around it. So the salvage company had a guy with a big torch. He's across the airfield, Oceana, and he's just cutting Tomcats up. So I went over there one time, and he's got, just starting on this one. I say, can I get that tail hook? And he goes, yeah, sure. Clunk, falls on the ground. I go,
Wow.
thanks. I take it. So I got a tail hook out of the deal.
Awesome.
That's one of my favorites. Then I got, I've got that story I told you about diverting to Kuwait. I had that hook point, which was kind of neat because you can't use it again in the boat. So I got that for me. So yeah, I got some good stuff, and most of it's the memories of the people I got to fly with. But some of those more tangible things are kind of cool too.
I have to ask, did you keep your black flying suit?
I think I have it in the attic. Yeah. In case
Somewhere.
Independence Day 4 happens again, they need to move it.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for answering our viewers' questions there. So I probably know the answer to this one, Corky, but we have had surprises in the past. But favourite aircraft you've flown?
It's the F-14. That's where I spent most of my adult life. Very close second is the A4 Skyhawk, just because of its little go-kart nature. But yeah, it's the Tomcat. I have an abiding love for that airplane, and it went away too soon, but she was getting to be a maintenance nightmare, and it's just kind of getting long in the tooth, and 1960s vintage design for a lot of the hardware just wasn't going to last much longer. But the F-14D finished its final upgrades. It went out on top of the game. She was the first across the beach for most of the mid 2000s because she was the most lethal and capable airplane to do it.
So do you have any hobbies?
Not really. My wife and I recently got a nice 32-foot camper a few years ago, so we camp quite a bit. That's one thing we knew we'd both like to do. I personally don't do much besides work and fart around the house and go camping. Really, that's about it.
Good stuff. Is there an aircraft you would like to fly, either past or present?
Would love to fly a Corsair, F4U Corsair. That would be really cool. I could probably pull that off with my air show contacts, but that would be pretty neat to fly something that vintage but that maneuverable.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, can we find you online? Are you on X, Instagram, anything like that?
I'm on X at RSE_VB. That's my X handle. I'm doing a thing right now called Tomcat Tales, where I'll tell a few stories from my storied past. Most of them relatively clean, but some things I've noted of interest through my flying career.
Awesome stuff. Well, Corky, thanks very much for coming on the show and sharing a bit about your story.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity, man.
Cheers.